How's your week been, Olivia?
It's good. Good so far.
Anything worth noting? Any success stories?
Um, well, let me think. Trying to think. There was something that I was excited about yesterday, and now I've completely forgot it. I was so excited that I almost wanted to call Richard, and now I can't remember.
Got
But
it.
there was,
Got it.
I'm getting something under closing in December I was excited about.
Oh,
That
that's
was from a
fantastic.
referral. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So I don't know if I jumped into this the last time we talked, but I wanted to talk to you guys at least the first couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about something that a lot of loan officers never really get a chance to experience, and that is understanding what makes you different than everybody else. Let's be honest with ourselves that when we call, and I know, Mike, you said that, having to reach out and call people, cold calling people is not really your cup of tea, right? I mean, you've never really thought that was your calling in life?
No, not at all.
Well, I'm going to also tell you that that's not my cup of tea either. I actually have never done it. I have
Oh,
never
wow.
actually picked up the phone and called a realtor and tried to solicit their business. It just never worked for me. So let me give you a little bit of backstory about my business so you guys can get an understanding of where I come from. So I got in the business in 1995 through my wife at the time's cousin needed some help. He brought me into the business and basically said, here's a phone, figure it out. Well, that's not much of a training module by any stretch. So I quickly realized that after calling my friends and calling my family that I didn't have that big of a network to choose from. You know what I mean? It became very evident that I didn't have a very big pool to go, or a lake to go fishing in. So I began to realize that my strength was not in selling people on what it was that I did. It was basically asking people for help. And there's a significant difference when you come from a place of humility and you ask people for help than versus picking up the phone and asking people to lean on people, which is asking people to fulfill a need that you have. So one of the things that I learned early on was a conversation that I had with a gentleman who was really my mentor back in the day. And he said to me, Doug, he said, if you had $500 and you were going to go out there and try to find business with $500, what will you spend it on? So before I give you the answer that I was given, I'm curious to know what each of you guys would say. So Olivia, you go first. What would you do with $500 to find a way to get business in the door?
I would say marketing. Get my name out there.
Okay.
Marketing, yeah.
Marketing? Okay, perfect. So what kind of marketing do you think you would do?
Probably doing more signs and maybe doing sponsorships, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay.
Events.
I like it. All right. Mike, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I'd probably do marketing, probably with like a different realtor,
Okay.
like co-sponsor. Oh no, but
Okay.
that would.
You know what's funny? That's exactly what I said. I told him I'd love to, because back in the day, back in 1995, it was, I would like to go produce postcards and go to the local apartment complexes and pass out, a home buyer seminar flyer. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the response that he gave me. He says, that's a traditional way of getting business. However, do you know people who already like you and trust you? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, I've got friends that I went to college with. I have family and all. I mean, I have a lot of people that I could reach out to. He goes, let me ask you this. Do you think you'd have a better chance at getting people who know you, like you, and trust you to help you, or getting somebody who doesn't know you from Adam to call you and talk to you? Which one do you think would give you a better chance of having a meaningful conversation?
People that know you and trust you.
Right? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to take $100 out of the 5, and I want you to call 5 people who you can count on. And by count on, I don't mean pick up the phone and go to dinner and get drunk and spend $100 having a great time. He said, please sit down and have a meaningful conversation with these people, and I'll tell you what to say, but I want you to have a conversation with them and talk to them about what you're doing and how important they are to you. And I would love if you could help me. And he says the hardest part about doing that, and the reason most people don't ever think of that, is because they always think of help as being a sign of weakness. I know as a man, I was brought up to believe that I didn't need to ask for directions, or that I could figure it out myself, or I didn't even need to read directions. All I needed to do was just show up and it would happen, and that's what a man does. Well, I quickly realized that that doesn't apply in every facet of life. Can you guys agree with that? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Anytime you ask somebody for help, it's really kind of, it's really, in a lot of people's eyes, it's a sign of weakness. Well, I quickly realized that if I thought like that, I was never going to be able to earn people's trust, because he also continued on with the story and said, let me give you another way to look at it, Doug. If you had a chance to call your friends up and tell them that you were moving and that you needed their help to help you move, to your friends, your close friends, and the people that really like you, do you think they would offer to help you? And I said, absolutely. He goes, if you decided to move and not tell any of your friends, and then you moved and then called them and told them you moved, what do you think the impact of their perception of you would be? And I said, wow, probably that I didn't think as highly of them as they think of me, because I didn't think to ask them for help.
Yeah.
And that really hit a chord with me. Meaning, I didn't really realize the optics of what it means to ask people for help in business, but we won't hesitate to ask our friends for help in a variety of other ways, whether it's just to listen to us, whether it's to help us come over and plan a party, or whatever the case may be. Can you guys all hear that? Can you guys all relate to that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, of course.
So if I had $500, and that's what I got, he gave me $500, and I went and had 5 meaningful conversations and dinners with 5 of my top influencers at the time. I had my uncle, I had the gentleman who would soon to be my best man, and then I had 3 other contacts that I knew from my neighborhood growing up that I felt like were really good people to know. The bottom line was that I spent $500 and I got 2 transactions out of it. And those 2 transactions really started my career, because in those 2 transactions, I was able to create relationships, which I'll teach you guys over the coming months, that turned into referable relationships where I was able to get a referral, I was able to get a subsequent referral, and then eventually I hit a gold mine with an engineer at Ford and another one who worked for a company where he was highly connected and highly influential, and another guy that was into racing cars, and it blew my mind because I didn't realize people who race cars had such a network of people. I can basically go back to my start of my career and look back and trace every business that I've ever gotten to a point where there were 6 or 8 people that became highly influential and became advocates of my business. And it all started with the understanding that you have to learn how to ask for help in a way that doesn't make you seem needy, but basically helps keep the relationship at an even keel. Can you guys all understand where I'm coming from there?
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
The option that you have is, yeah, you can go do the traditional marketing, which I don't think is a bad idea. I don't think that's a path that shouldn't be explored. I think you should have several pillars or legs of a table that represent your business. I think you should focus marketing towards realtors. I think you should focus marketing towards financial planners and attorneys and CPAs. But I also think you shouldn't neglect the people that already know you, like you, and trust you. And the hardest part about doing that is you're basically calling people up and you're going to feel like you're being needy. And the term that is called leaning on people, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. So what we're going to work on over the next couple of weeks is the articulation of what your heart means and what your mind thinks and how it comes out of your mouth, so that you don't appear or feel like you can't have genuine conversations around asking people for help. Would you guys like to learn how to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I want you guys to spend a couple seconds thinking about it and just shout out the first answer that you believe is true. What is the one thing that makes you different than any other loan officer, either in your branch or in the company or in your market? What is the one quality that makes you different than everybody else? Tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because you
Mhm.
don't want to say that you're, you know, of course you're a hard worker, but you don't want to say they're not hard workers either. I don't know.
What's the one thing that makes you different than Amber Maurer? What's the one thing that makes you different than Lonnie Smith? What's the one thing that makes you
Yes.
different than any other else? What's that?
Our personalities.
Okay, so you believe your personality is so different than everybody else's, that's what makes you unique.
Well,
It's hard.
it is.
Michael, what
I'm
about
not
you,
sure.
buddy? What do you think? Huh?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking. Hmm.
I guess, I don't know, the way you interact with people, everyone's different on how they interact with each other.
Okay, well, let's go down that path a little bit. So what do you mean by interact? Do you think you say, do you think that you mean things differently than somebody else? Do you think you care less than somebody else? Do you think you,
No. I don't know. That's a hard question.
I wrestled with it for days because the person that mentored me really made me sweat it out. And it really was something that stuck with me because the answer is so profound that when you hear it, you won't believe it, but then the more that you think about it, the more that you begin to realize that that is really the only thing that makes you different than everybody else. Because if you and I were to sit down with a client and I was competing for their business as you were, you guys, we all work for the same company. There's no, we're not going to have better rates or fees or better processes or turn times. There's not really going to be anything that's going to differentiate you and me except one thing. And it has nothing to do with experience. It has nothing to do with appearance. It has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Michael, I'm going to give you a shot here, brother. I need you to give me an idea.
Nothing to do with knowledge. Yeah, I'm
Are you
not
going to
sure.
say, and we're going to be like, are you going to say it
No,
when you're like, oh my gosh?
Yeah, pretty much. It's really, you're going to go, well, that was kind of anticlimactic, but it's really it's really powerful when I say it. So
Your motivation?
Yeah, I mean, you could say your motivation, but I would challenge you to go, how's your motivation any less different than mine?
Yeah.
How are you more motivated than me, and how are you less motivated than me? Here's the piece. Here it is. I want you, and I'm recording this call, so don't feel like you guys got to write this down because I'll send you guys the replay when it's over.
Oh, okay.
It's the words that come out of your mouth. Your ability to articulate your value is the only thing that makes you different than everybody else. What you feel in your heart and what your brain interprets that as determines what comes out of your mouth. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and tell you a little bit about the psychology of what that really means. There are two parts of our brain that we function with every day. There's the neurocortex and the limbic. And the neurocortex, and this is scientifically proven, so you guys can research it if you want. The neurocortex part of the brain is the black and white, analytical, engineered type, rational part of our brain. That's the part of our brain that processes language, that processes facts and figures and so forth. That's the part of the brain that most people default because they believe that's the only piece of information that really matters. But it is scientifically proven that the limbic part of our brain is what causes action. It's what causes movement in our bodies. The limbic part of our brain is the part of our brain that feels emotion. Most people don't purchase any item based on facts and figures. They use those facts and figures to come to a place where they feel good about the decision, They use the limbic part of the brain to determine if they like the person that they're buying from or working with. And it's also the main reason why most of us struggle to identify why we love our partner or are in love with somebody, because the limbic part of our brain doesn't process facts and figures and language. It processes feelings. The hardest part about our industry is that most of our competition and most of the people that work in it are very transactional, meaning they only care about the facts, the rates, the fees. The problem that brings up is that most people, meaning consumers, always feel like they're just a commodity. And when you make your consumer feel like a commodity, they treat you in kind. Meaning if you treat them like a transaction, they're going to treat you like a rate or a good faith estimate or a LE or a, they're going to compare you to the banks, credit unions, and the internet. Do you guys like the idea of having to be compared against those?
Not really.
Not really. Really, Michael? You're kind of him and hawing about that. You're not sure about it?
No. I don't like.
Right? Emphatically, you have no interest in being shopped against somebody else when there's rates and fees, because you believe in your heart that you possess a higher level of value on them. You care more. You're motivated more. You believe more. You're interacting with them at a deeper level, right? These are all things that you guys believe in your heart are true, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
How do you communicate that to a client who literally gives you less than 5 minutes for them to make the decision on whether or not they like you or not?
It's kind of hard.
Because if you sit there, and it's extremely difficult. So when you sit in front of a client for the first time, or you pick up the phone and try to call a realtor for the first time, you're trying to go up against everybody else that has sold them or has leaned on them in such a way that it makes it virtually impossible for you to break free from that stigma without them sitting down and talking to you. But once we get to the point where we get somebody who's willing to talk to us, we absolutely fall on our face because we don't know what to say. We don't have a clear understanding of what our value is. And even if we do, which is why you guys struggled on the phone so mightily trying to figure out what makes you different, that's why we struggle with our realtor relationships and with our client relationships most of the time. The point of all of this is simple. You have a very short period of time to frame yourself in a way that you want your realtors and clients to see you. And you are not like every other loan officer who's out there. Trust me. You work for a company that isn't like any other mortgage company out there, and you work for a manager that isn't like any other manager that's out there. What you're trying to get across to people very genuinely is what makes you different. And the reality is that most of the audience that you're talking to isn't ever going to be able to give you their answer because they've never thought of it. Imagine if you started every conversation with a realtor by asking them, Mr. Realtor, Mrs. Realtor, of all the agents that are in your office or in the marketplace, what makes you different than everybody else? And listen to the adjectives that roll off their tongue. I'm more motivated. I care more. I'm available 24/7. I've got 25 years of experience, which is great. But at the end of the day, consumers don't buy product from people based on ego, and they don't buy product from people who are self-motivated, who are self-centric, meaning they only speak in I terms. People purchase and use from people that they feel connected with. I'm going to ask you guys a question about your personal lives. When was the last time you bought a product from somebody simply based on rate, based on fee, based on price, based on commodity? A major product, TV, car. Have you guys bought a car recently? Bought a major appliance lately?
About a car, like a few years back.
A few years back. What was that? Why did you buy the car from that dealership?
Well, I really wanted that car. But
Did you shop price?
Yeah. Well, actually,
Was it?
yeah, I did a little before I purchased. Yeah.
Okay, so you wanted to make sure that they were competitive, right?
Correct.
but the car had everything you wanted, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Tell me about the experience with the salesperson and the dealership themselves. Tell me can you remember the word for word of what they said to you?
Oh my gosh. It's been years, but
You can't,
no.
right? But let me ask you this question, Olivia. Can you remember how it felt to buy the car from that dealership? Do you remember how they made you feel?
Yeah.
See that the clouds are splitting and the sun's shining through. See, there's the aha moment. People will never remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
That makes a lot of sense. That's so true.
It's such an eye-opener when you finally put two and two together. The truth in the matter is that what you say is so important, not because you want them to remember it, because you want to evoke a feeling. And the feeling that you want to get is you want them to trust you. You want them to believe you. You want them to like you. And the only way to do that is to get away from the black and white side of the transaction. I'm not saying that stuff's not important, because just like you said, you did a little research to make sure that you were that the car was competitive. But beyond that, it didn't really matter because you wanted that car so bad. Well, a car is like the house, and the dealership is no different than you. And in the sense that they find a house that they love, your job is just to be competitive, but more importantly, your job as the salesperson or the consultant is to evoke a feeling of emotion that leaves a lasting impression. How did the dealership make you feel, Olivia?
They were friendly, they were enjoyable to talk to, and they were just nice.
They were just nice. And you know what? They did that because that's just who they were. They didn't have a plan. They didn't have any coaching on what to say. They didn't orchestrate the situation to be that way. Most dealerships, either they're good or they're bad. You have a good salesman or you have a bad salesman, and you had a good sales process at the dealership. Which begs the question, if they were good at selling you the car, how many times have they followed up with you since you bought the car?
Maybe right after I bought it, but after then, no.
Nothing. So here you have, and I'm sorry to just use you, Olivia, but I think Michael's kind of, are you following what we're saying, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. So what you've essentially done is you've taken a process and a product. So imagine that you go to the dealership. You have a product that if you were to rate it from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, the product is at a 5 because that's the car you wanted, right?
Correct.
The process is the act of purchasing the car, and from what you've explained to me, you would rank them as a 5 as well. So you have a product that's a high level, and you have a process that's a high level. That essentially makes you what's called an advocate. What's the name of the dealership?
It's the Jeep dealership, Dodge Ford.
Jeep
I don't
dealership.
even know. Yeah.
What's the name of it?
I don't know the exact name of it now. It was the Dodge Jeep dealership.
What city?
In Houston.
Houston. Okay. So of all the dealerships that are in Houston, can you tell me how many other Jeep and Dodge dealerships are in Houston?
Oh, thousands.
Thousands. Would you think if you were going to go buy a Jeep or a Chrysler product again, would you think about going to another dealer if the price was fair and the car was what you wanted?
No, not to a different one. I'd probably go back to the same one.
Why would you go back to the same one?
Just my experience there was good.
You had a great experience, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if somebody was to say, hey, Olivia, I want to buy a Jeep, and I know that there's a bunch of dealerships. I know you drive a Dodge product or a Chrysler product or a Jeep product. Where should I go? And you'd go, oh my gosh, you should go talk to these guys. They were great.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair estimate, right? You do that?
Yes. Uh-huh.
By and large, you've now just experienced firsthand what it means to be an advocate of a business who didn't even ask you to be an advocate or didn't even ask you to keep them at top of mind if you run into somebody who's looking to buy a Jeep or a Chrysler product.
Mm-hmm.
My entire model of what I'm going to teach you is to take the experience that you had at the dealership and not make it accidental. I'm going to make it orchestrated. I'm going to teach you how to orchestrate moments and how to leverage the relationship so that when your clients leave the experience, not only are they ecstatic with the product, but they're going to be ecstatic with the service and the process. And because they're going to be ecstatic about the service and the product, they're going to be advocates or raving fans of your business. And I'm going to teach you how to leverage those relationships so that when they leave or if they're going through the process, they're going to become advocates of your business because they're going to know that you want their help and you're going to ask them for help in such a way that's going to make it so powerful, and it's going to compel them to refer the people that they care about to you. Does that sound like it would be a great business model to build from?
Oh, yes.
Michael, what do you think, brother?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, so what did you hear me just say? Michael, Olivia and I have been talking about it, so what did you hear Olivia and I just discuss that resonates with you?
Like an example in my life?
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is like when I signed an apartment, because I've never really made a big purchase.
Yeah.
And
why did you choose to work, so tell me why you liked the apartment complex. Like, what was it about the apartment complex that really made you decide to want to lease from them?
I don't know if it goes along because it was more of like I chose the area, so I didn't really choose the nicest apartment. I kind of chose the area to live in instead.
Okay,
So,
but how did the leasing agent make you feel when you signed the paperwork? Did it feel like you could trust them, that you knew that you were moving into some place that they cared about whether or not you were happy?
Yes, of course. Yeah, they were really nice. Yeah, very
so don't take that lightly. You assume that everybody's that way, and I've leased homes and rented homes and bought homes, and I'll tell you right now, as a general rule, there are very few nice people who care about you that are out there. Most people are very just surface and transactional. They'll get you to do whatever they will say and do whatever is necessary to get you to sign, and after that, they don't care. What's the relationship been like with your leasing office or your management office since you leased that apartment?
I haven't really done anything with them. Besides,
Okay.
I mean, I've been to the office a couple times and they were nice again, but I don't know. I haven't really.
So that's fine. You still believe that if somebody was out there looking for a place to live in your area, would you recommend your apartment complex?
If yeah.
Okay, don't look at it from an economic standpoint. If somebody said, I was looking to rent an apartment and it fit the price point, would you consider referring your apartment complex to somebody you care about?
Yeah, I would. I like it.
You like it. Okay. See, it's really that simple. See, they haven't, and you've just proved the point even more so. They haven't done anything special for you. They haven't gone out of their way to make you feel like you're the only tenant. They've really just been nice. They've really just made you, quote unquote, feel. And let's keep going back to that. Your apartment complex, as well as the dealership, it's how they make you feel. All the other pieces of it, the economics, but if you had an apartment complex that was the same price and similar amenities, and the leasing office was a bunch of hooligans versus the apartment complex that you rented from, where would you be making your decision from?
Just, I guess how nice they were and how they treated me and everything.
Because why? At the end of the day, if the prices were similar, why would you, let's say even the apartment complex that was nicer, why would you rent from a place that was a little bit more expensive if all they were was nicer? What does that mean to you as a human being, that the person is nicer to you? And I'm going to plug you on this because I really want you to get the point across.
Because, I mean, you're acting on emotion. So,
Do you believe that?
I do, yes.
Do you like working with people who respect you?
I do, yes.
Do you like working with somebody who cares about you?
Of course.
You say that as if that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And how old are you?
23.
So at 23, you already know that it's nice to work with somebody who cares about you, or at least perceives that they care about you.
Yes.
Yes, right? Olivia, yes?
Correct, yes.
So how do you and I and Mike communicate how much we care about people in the first couple minutes of a meeting or a conversation? And that's what I started this conversation off with you guys. What makes you different?
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of see where I'm taking this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In order for you guys to be successful, you have to first be able to identify what your value is. You have to first understand the science behind why we are hesitant picking up the phone and talking to people who don't know us, like us, and trust us, and why we're hesitant asking the people that we know, like, and trust, and who already like, know, and trust us, asking them for help. There's a divide inside of our brains that make us very, very cautious when it comes to both of those arenas. We don't want to be rejected, and we don't want to ask the people who care about us for help because we feel like we're leaning on them. And we know that we don't have to, but the truth is, you know, we don't know another way to talk about our business with the people that we care about to get them to realize that we can't do it ourselves. So do you guys believe that it would be nice to get help from people who already know you, like you, and trust you?
Yes. I think it'd make it easier too.
It makes it infinitely easier. I was never going to be that salesman. I could never sit down and cold call 25 to 30 realtors on a Monday and get them to meet with me. And even if I could get those realtors to meet with me, and I did with listing agents because I was really good at getting listing agents to meet with me, I never had a sales pitch that really worked. I never was, in the beginning of my career, I was very unsuccessful at getting people to trust me because I stumbled over my words and I wasn't really different than anybody else. But what I was really good at I was really good at building relationships with my clients. So my business, and I track, and we'll get to this point in several weeks, I track my business on a day-to-day basis. I have a lead tracker that tracked every lead that came into my team, and since 1997, and it tells me a couple details that I think will be powerful for you guys to remember. In 2013, when I stopped originating loans myself, my business, I closed just north of 15 million that year, and 63% of my business that year came from my past clients and current clients. 63%. Wow. That means over $10 million in loan volume that year came from people who already knew me, liked me, and trusted me, who had gone through my process before and either came back as a repeat buyer or referred somebody in their life that they cared about. The remaining 36% came from realtors, of which I had 5 or 6 at my table, financial planners, attorneys, and CPAs. I did $15 million in loan volume, and I didn't even pick up the phone and ask for business. And that's not to brag about my business. It's to brag about the idea that you don't have to be a salesperson and constantly cold call and get rejected if you understand the value and meaning of what it means to be referable. And it starts with understanding value. It starts by understanding what you say is the only thing that makes you different than everybody else in your marketplace. And when you master it, you become an asset to the realtors that if you ask them the same question, you can start coaching them on the same things that I'm teaching you. And it makes you a partner of theirs and not a parasite. Because a lot of the relationships that realtors have with lenders is that it's a parasitic host relationship. The parasite is the loan officer who sucks on the realtor's business, and they don't know how to give back. And the reality is that that's why they always say you're only as good as your last transaction. Now, this isn't perfect, but the success that you're going to have is all going to be predicated on how quickly you implement the conversations that I'm going to teach you and implement the style in which you're going to say it in. It's up to you how quickly you want this to take hold, but I will tell you that it will literally change the way in which you pick up the phone and talk to people, and you'll begin to realize that you're the prize and not the agents you're talking to. Because when you pick up the phone, you're not calling them to get leads from the realtors. You're calling them to do something that you're going to hear me repeat over and over and over again. You're going to pick up the phone and you're going to tell them that you are a relationship amplifier. And the relationship amplification is that those realtors who refer you are going to receive such a high benefit of working with you because your clients are going to become like you were at the leasing office, Mike, and like you were, Olivia, at the dealership. Your clients are going to become advocates of your business because you're going to deliver a great product and a great process, and your clients are going to be compelled to refer the people that they care about to you, which in turn is going to help your realtors understand what your value is.
Okay.
Damn, that's my mic. I just dropped it. Is this making sense to you guys?
Yes.
It is. But I guess I just have a question where do we, like, how do we go about that? Like, how, I know you say you're going to teach us to, I guess, to see a little bit more, what's the word? I don't want to say likable, but like, just a little more caring. How do we go about that is my question. What do we do?
You're going to learn how to set the stage appropriately, and you're going to learn how to communicate your value in a way that is so communicative and so valuable. I'll give you an example. This is the best example that I can give you, and we'll explore it a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm going to share with you guys how I start my presentations with my clients. And we will go back and dissect this because there's so much going on that you guys are going to hear the words, but you're going to feel the message that I say. So I'm going to talk to both of you guys like you're my clients, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Olivia, Mike, you know what? It's an absolute pleasure to get to know you. Oh, you know what? So Richard Smith referred you to me, and that's amazing. So what did Richard tell you guys about me that made you feel comfortable to listen to me today?
That you were great to work with.
Awesome. Anything else?
He just spoke highly of you.
Awesome. You know what? That's so important to me, and I'll tell you why. I believe that my job today is really, really simple. Regardless of what happens to you and I today, I hope that at the end of our conversation, that at the very least, you'll go back to Richard and say thank you. And the reason that's so important to me is because you guys have a relationship with Richard that I emphatically have to take very good care of. And by doing that, if I take really good care of you by answering what your goals, wants, and needs are, and I'm able to give you advice that points you in the right direction, I know that you're going to feel really, really grateful and thankful that Richard introduced us together. You know what happens with that is that you're going to go back to Richard and say thank you. And because you go back to Richard and say thank you, Richard and mine's relationship is going to be amplified because he knows that I'm doing right by him. He knows that if he puts me in touch with one of his clients, he knows that I'm going to take such great care of them that he's going to look really great for doing it. And the amazing part about that whole thing that happens is that now my relationship with you gets amplified because I'm putting your wants, goals, and needs ahead of everything else. And that's something that I take very, very seriously. And the reason I take it seriously, Mr. or Olivia and Mike, is because my business is built on this philosophy called the triangle of trust. And that is what I've just kind of really mapped out for you. So by the time we're done with this process, if you choose to work with me, then you're not only going to go back to Richard and say thank you, but I believe that you're going to be compelled to want to refer me to the people in your life that you care about. And that's the ultimate prize for what I do. It isn't even so much about getting the loan for you guys as much as it is right now just getting you back to saying, going back to Richard and say thank you. But I have to be honest with you about something. I'm very particular about the people that I work with. And the reason is because my business, as I've explained to you, is very, very relationship oriented, and I can't afford to have any bad press with it. So I'm very selective about the people I work with. So as much as you guys are sitting here trying to interview me, I'm also interviewing you to see if I am the right person for the job. And there may be a point in this conversation where we decide that it's not a good fit, and I just want you to know that it's okay. I just want you to be clear that I'm also looking at the same thing, deciding whether or not I'm going to want to work with you because you might not be a good fit for my business. Can we be in an agreement where at the end of this conversation we can agree that if it's a good fit, we'll work together. If it's not, it's okay that we'll shake hands and part ways? as friends. And at the end of it, I just want you to know that my number one goal is to have you go back to Richard and say thank you. Now, if by chance this conversation works out and we decide to move forward, my ultimate goal in this entire process, Olivia and Mike, is to get you guys to be advocates of my business. See, much the same way when you go to purchase, or let's say you go to a restaurant. You know, what's your favorite restaurant, Olivia?
Y'all don't have that over there, but Whataburger. It's not a restaurant.
Okay,
It's a fast food place.
Yep, I know. I've heard about Whataburger, but you know what?
Yeah.
It's not everywhere, but if I was in Houston looking for a place to eat and you're like, you should go eat at Whataburger, right?
Correct.
So what I want to be for you is I want to be Whataburger for the mortgage industry. And the reason I want to compare that is people ask you for advice all the time. People always talk to you or you talk to them, especially when you go through buying a home. You're going to have a multitude of conversations about home inspections and appraisals and process this and process that, and you're going to be on cloud nine talking about the home you're going to be buying. When somebody asks you who you're going to buy the home through, I just want you to advocate me and just remember that my business is really predicated on people like you advocating me to the people you care about. Just like you did with Whataburger, they didn't even ask you to mention their name, but you felt so compelled that that was the first name that came to mind. Is that fair?
Yes.
So before we get into the details, I just want you guys to be clear. My business is, again, propelled only by my ability to meet your goals and expectations. Is that something you're comfortable with?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that's really part of my conversation that I start every client with.
Wow.
So tell me what you heard me say, how is that different than what every other loan officer or what you've been saying to clients and realtors when you meet with them?
Well, you didn't say.
Any different?
Yeah, I think so. You didn't say me, me, me. You were just saying I'll help you. I can do this. You know, it wasn't a.
It wasn't self-centric, was it?
Yeah.
It was all about what was in it for them, right? It's all about what's in it for them. And there's a piece in there called the permission to reject. When you put the permission to reject in there, you come from a place of strength in a position of want versus need. That again takes you a little bit farther away from the idea that you're leaning on them. And most people just don't want to be sold, but most people show up to a meeting like this feeling like at some point you're going to. So do you guys understand the difference between solicited and unsolicited?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're married, correct?
Yes, I am.
You walk into the room and what's your husband's name?
Nick.
So you walk into the room and you ask Nick, hey Nick, how do I look? And he goes, wow, you look really good. You look great. You look amazing. Versus walk in the room and he goes, wow, you look really good. You look amazing. Which one has a greater impact on you?
The second one. Wow, you look amazing. Where you don't have to ask.
Stop right there. He uses the same words, but one is solicited and one is unsolicited. Which one gives more credibility to the words that are said?
The unsolicited one.
Michael, would you agree?
Of course, yes.
That's why it's so important to understand the psychology of your clients. You're going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to be recognized as the consultant. You're going to be recognized as the professional, not in what you do anymore, guys, because I'm not going to teach you things you don't already know. I'm not going to teach you how to be a loan officer. You guys already know how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to be an originator. And I mean by originators, I'm going to teach you what it means to originate relationships and originate them in such a way that it provides you the ability of multiplying them through relationship amplification. And it's about orchestrating situations and creating conversations and using language as a means to make you different than everybody else. And the conversation I just had with you guys is just a small component to what it means to set the stage. So, do I sound like I'm credible?
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. Does it sound like something you guys want to continue with?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So that's my soapbox for today. We usually do this about for 45 being recorded, so I will make a copy of a link and I will send it to you guys by the end of the day. Then next week time we'll continue on this conversation a little bit more to work on more of the language around. Well, you guys understand the concept of why we're going to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Next week's call, we're going to focus on some of the particulars about how you start a conversation to get people to start framing you in the light that you want them to see you in.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, keep building it. So it's important that you guys are on these calls. Not everyone is going to be organized and focused on one specific thing. A lot of what I talk about is on the experience that you guys are having and what I feel like I'm getting as feedback from you that we need to focus on. So I would challenge you guys this week, do one thing for me, and here's my call to action. At the end of every conversation, somebody is going to say thank you to you. You guys probably get thank yous throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to tell me what you say to people when they say thank you. Like, what do you normally say to somebody? Let's keep it in the realm of you're welcome. Mike, what do you say?
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome. No problem. My pleasure. It's what I'm here for. It's what I get paid to do. It was my pleasure. Don't even question it. Don't even think about it. It was no big deal, right? We minimize it. Okay? Instead of saying those things, my challenge is for you guys to count how many times somebody says thank you or says some kind of an appreciative response to you, how many times that you guys get those, and I want you to use this in return. I want you to say, thanks for noticing.
Okay.
Thanks for noticing.
Somebody says,
So when they say thank you to us, we say thanks for noticing?
Yeah, thanks for noticing. Because what they're really saying is they acknowledge what work you put into it. And I want you to respond with, hey, thanks for noticing.
Okay.
It's going to feel awkward at first because it's not going to be your your auto response system. You're going to have to realize that what you're getting towards is you're going to start working on ways of creating referable moments and capitalizing on them. And it starts with the recognition of how many times somebody acknowledges you. Every time a client or a realtor or a person at work or a friend says, thank you, just say, hey, thanks for noticing. You're welcome.
Okay.
Sounds a little awkward though, doesn't it?
It does, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. I get what you're.
What am I saying?
I get it.
What am I saying?
That thank you for noticing what I've done for you, or what I've helped you with.
And why do you think, and how do you think that's different than saying my pleasure, you're welcome?
Because you're taking the thank you, like you're saying, well, okay,
You're
thank you.
receiving
Well,
it.
I know, thank
You're
you.
receiving it.
Yeah, correct.
Because most of
you're
the
giving
time
back.
what we do isn't by accident, but yet we roll it off like it is. Like we roll it off like it's really no big deal, but the truth is that if you really think about the things that you do that warrant a thank you, you guys work really hard. You guys work really hard at getting people to acknowledge that. I don't care if it's holding the door for somebody. I don't care if it's picking up. It doesn't matter what it is. Your conscious being doing something that somebody else values requires you to receive it. And the first step in becoming referable is to receive the work that you do that's recognizable. That's why it's important to say, thanks for noticing. All right, guys. Did I give you guys enough to want to come back?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. Michael, you're awfully quiet, brother. I think maybe it's just you, or is it me?
It's me. Just quiet.
I start to doubt myself when I don't hear responses from my classmates.
Sorry, I'll work on that. That's just how I've always been.
Nope, that's okay. What I want you to do is I want you to understand that this is a safe place, and that you will get more out of this class the more vocal and more conversational, and the more you add to the calls, the better off you're going to be. Because in a quick time, you know, after we've spent a couple weeks doing this, if you're not engaged in it, when we start tracking your business, I'll know, and you will too, whether or not this is the right path for you. And it may not be, but I want you to realize that I'm going to give you everything I have to help you get to that place, but you got to make the commitment to me that you're going to give me everything you have.
Yes, I can do that.
You can do that? Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Does that seem like a fair deal for you and I, Olivia? Does that seem pretty good?
Yes, that does.
Can you and I make a commitment to each other to hold Michael to, you know, to what we know he's capable of doing?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Do you guys ever see each other? Do you guys see each other at all during the week?
Yeah.
We do. We didn't see each other this week, but we're going to meet up next week, right, Michael?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so we'll meet up next week. We tried to do our 2-hour phone calls together just to encourage one another.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to give you guys some things that you can help keep each other accountable and motivated with. So that really helps out a lot for me. So awesome, guys. You guys have any big plans for the weekend? Anything special?
No.